Jim just joined. It's 6:04 p.m. This is the Bluff Town Council regular meeting. Roll call.
Linda Suster.
Jim Sayers.
Joanne Hook.
Grant Murray.
Ann Lepina.
Erin Nelson, serving as town manager.
The first item is the approval of the Bluff Town Council regular meeting minutes on July 12th, 2022. Has everybody read them? Are there any changes, modifications, points of discussion?
This one's for the 13th
The 12th.
or 12th. Yeah. Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. The second is approval of Bluff Town Council work session minutes of July 13th, 2022. Same question. Has everybody received them, read them? Are there any points of discussion? Any changes or modifications?
Motion to approve.
I'll defer. I'll second.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then there's the approval of the Bluff Town Council and Bluff Planning and Zoning Commission joint work session on July 13th, 2022. Has everybody received them, read them? Are there any points of discussion? Any changes?
I did not read them, so I'm going to abstain.
And I am in the same boat. I thought that I had read them, and tonight I couldn't see them. So unless we can pop them up on the screen, I would feel better putting those on next. Or abstaining.
Let's move those to next week, y'all.
They'll have to go to next week because I have to abstain because I was not in it. So we have 3 people abstaining. We'll move it to next week.
Good.
Thank
All
you.
right. Then, so that everybody's kind of on the same page, I am in a remote area where I'm hoping my internet will hold up. If my internet does not hold up, Jim will take over the meeting. I can't see. I really want to isolated.
Thank you for
I
muting
can
that.
see I can see isolated people. They kind of pop up. So if you want to speak, probably directing your comment or your wave to Erin so that she knows you have something to say. I'm not going to be able to see it. I have the little bubbles of everybody's initials or what they show up. We'll go to public comment at this point. There's a 3-minute time limit for each person wishing to comment. If you exceed the 3-minute time, then without permission from me, the meeting controller will mute you. Is there anyone in the community that would like to make a public comment? And if so, indicate that some way to Erin.
We've got a wave from Jim Hook.
Jim, go ahead, please.
Hello, everybody. It's a long time no see. Thank you for these 3 minutes, and thank you all for volunteering so much time and energy into managing our town. My comment and question to the council is concerning the alley on West 6th Street in the Cottonwood Addition, south of Larkspur Street for a distance of about 550 feet. I know you're all familiar with that section, and I know the town road department improved this with gravel and grading last year. I own the agriculturally zoned property west of the strip, including a 20-foot wide width that was graveled and graded beyond the dead ends of Larkspur and Sagebrush streets. My question is, do you, the council, call this an alley? And if so, does this public property then allow public access and public use? I'd also like to know, in the event you do call this strip an alley, if I may improve the south end of it to allow vehicle access into my property south of the end of the alley. Now, I don't expect your answer during this time, but please let me know. The subject of alleys has been postponed too long by the council, in my opinion, and is causing a lot of confusion and conflict in the community. Please buck up and address these concerns and make some decisions. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Jim.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience who wants to make a public comment?
I'm
I
not.
am not,
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
I'm not seeing anything.
Let's give it a couple more seconds and make sure. Then, not hearing or seeing anything further from anyone in the audience, we will move to an executive session to discuss the imminent threat of litigation under the rules. Is there a motion?
So
Really
made.
fast. Oh, as a housekeeping item, I ask that all council members either remove themselves from this meeting or please ensure that you're on mute and your video is turned off. We will have a notice on the screen saying that we are in an executive session and we will return shortly.
Was there a
Okay,
motion?
well, yeah, I got a motion that we go into executive session.
And I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Anyone
We-
opposed?
The other link, do we sign out of this and go to another link? Is that what we're doing?
Correct. You got the
I
other
have-
link.
let's sign out completely.
Yeah.
I think that's what everyone usually does. Thank you.
Your call will be connected when you enter the PIN followed by the pound key. You're muted because a lot of people are on this call. Press *6 to unmute.
Hello, we're back, or we will be very shortly.
You lost most of your telephone people. They couldn't read, I guess, and most everybody has left that was on the phone.
Oh, well.
Welcome on back if they come.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where our YouTube channel, they can look later.
And Linda, are you ready to start recording?
Yes.
And Craig, are you? Okay, it's 6:53 p.m. We're back in our regular Blufftown meeting. Let's do roll call quickly. We were all in on the closed session. Let's do roll call one more time.
Linda Sosa,
Jim Sayers.
Luann Hook.
Grant Murray.
Ann Leffinen.
Aaron Nelson.
So on the, I'm going to back up for a second. We have roughly 20 items on the agenda. It is almost 7 o'clock. My suggestion would be, and it's just a suggestion, we can see how it goes, but go ahead and start, see how far we get, and see if what we need to do is continue these and have a meeting next week, since we missed our meeting the first week of July. We had a lot of items, and it may be that rather than waiting until August 2nd to move more things on to August 2nd, we want to look at having a meeting next week. But I'm just tossing that out. The second piece is on the unfinished business. It makes more sense to have number 2 be number 1, and then have number 1 move to number 2. Does anybody have a problem with doing it that way?
Let's do that.
So, Mr. Hook, are you available to do the drainage history of Southeast Utah?
That's what I called it too, but it's really Southeast Bluff.
Oh, I'm sorry, Southeast Bluff.
We hear that so much. I can do that. I'll make it real quick. I sent that to the mayor, my little map and a bit of history that went along with that. And I hope all the town council got that.
I believe that they did.
Okay. The drainages that come off the cliff to the north, Cow Canyon, Calf Canyon, Cottonwood Wash, and to the west of us, the big one that runs down by Desert Rose. Historically, those have all just run into the floodplain below town between us and the river. The section we're talking about in East Bluff, Cow Canyon and Calf Canyon, just before Luann and I got here 34 or 5 years ago, the floods would come down through. Typically they'd flood out into the street and stuff too, which we hope we fixed. Get under the highway or across the highway once in a while, and then just disappear into the floodplain down below. If it's a big enough flood, it makes it all the way to the river, off into Guyman's Field or the BLM east of town, make a big mosquito swamp or something, and then it would just finally evaporate and go away. When the Galen and Rama were working on the Cadillac Ranch, and Galen started building the campground itself, he dredged the pond and built land up to push out into, which is where the campground is now. In the process, he dug that big hole and there was a nice lake. But now when Cottonwood Wash or Calf Canyon would flood down through there, it would have gone right into the lake that they just dug. So he used his machinery and he cut that where the wash used to go, the Calf Canyon, and a lot of it came below the lodge too, which is why all the big cottonwood trees were there. he cut that straight down and went through our fence and hooked it to the Dalton ditch. That ditch was put in again just a year or two before we got here, and it transfers water from up below the Jones farm, the Davis farm, and takes it all the way to the farmland to the west of us, west of town. Now then, with the trench that Galen dug on the east side of that Cadillac Ranch property, and with the ditch coming through, all the drainages on the east side of town, east of Cottonwood Wash, come down and intersect the ditch, the Dalton ditch, follow the ditch over, and then they release into Cottonwood Wash just below here. And if in the old days, Guymans would bulldoze the wash up where the ditch went, and that would let the flood water go on into their land to the west, and Cottonwood Wash water also. That breaks out every time it floods, and so it's not used anymore. But the irrigation now is the transport to get the water into Cottonwood Wash. It's dried up all the country below the ditch because the water can't flow across there anymore. So my thought is that historically that water just goes into the floodplain, and the town really hasn't changed anything by doing the storm drain you did. It still runs into the floodplain. It does it on the east side of town, into the irrigation ditch and onto Hook property. It also spills into Lacey's property, which is east, and always has. There's really a nice wetland over there. I used to take gambusia minnows and treat that pond over there and put mosquito pellets in it too in bad years. On the west side of town, the canyon, I'm not sure if it has a name, that comes down that goes by Desert Rose. It also dumps into the floodplain on our place and on Guyman's too. So that's a little bit of it in a nutshell. There has never been really a storm drain system that went all the way to the river. And from my point of view, I don't need it. I need that water to stop on us a little bit so that it keeps our river bottom alive a little bit. Anybody have a question, or I'll just get off because I know you're busy.
No, thank you very much. That was pretty good.
Great synopsis, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
That was-
the other wash that you didn't really address was Cow Canyon that comes down and goes across the farm when it really floods.
Yeah, when it really floods, it goes across the road on 162, and it brings all kinds of weeds and junk into Bill Davis's field, which can be a foot deep sometimes and spread all the way across that. He gets some more topsoil out of the deal, but it dead ends in his fields basically, and then slowly works its way across. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So moving to number 1, we've had a request from the Cadillac Ranch RV Park for some financial assistance on taking care of that drainage, whether it be all on the town, partly on the town, shared upon with other landowners in that area. There have been several walkthroughs by different ones of us going up there and taking a look. I also sent out about 5 or 6 weeks ago the 2 different estimates that Cadillac Ranch received. I think one was around $16,000, one was around $18,000 to work on that drainage that goes from the culvert down toward the river. So I'm going to open that up for discussion. I think we should probably discuss and if possible, vote on what we want to do on that request.
Could you just give us an update? Because I know you talked with our attorney and got some advice from him.
Well, I think I put that out earlier in a meeting, and I don't know that I have. Hold on a second. Let me see. Does everybody remember what I told you? Or did you take notes or look at the notes?
I believe it's in
I always,
minutes.
you talk, Mayor.
I put it in the minutes last meeting.
Right. And what I remember, and that's why I just want to make sure my memory is correct, and I guess I did read it in those minutes, is that he advised that it's on private property and that the town doesn't need to do that one or any of the other drainages that go through town, here or up on the bench or wherever they might be.
Okay, so luckily I do have those notes with me. So I talked with Chris McEnany on July 11th, 2022. At 4 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. One of the topics was about that drainage. The underlying principle is that there's no obligation to provide stormwater drainage across private property. However, it's done on a case-by-case analysis, looking at the facts. If the town feels that it improves the drainage and is a benefit to the town as a whole, we can spend money to do that. If the town feels that there is no benefit to the town as a whole and that it benefits solely private landowners, then we should probably not be spending public funds for improving or taking care of private property. It's extremely fact dependent, and our attorney did not look at that property. He did not see it. He saw a video that was sent by the owners of Cadillac Ranch that I forwarded to him of the flooding, but he has not seen it. So he was not stating a legal conclusion that we should or should not do something. What he said, though, that is the general rule. There's no obligation. I did talk to him about the fact that the Bluff service area had work done on the flood mitigation on the other side of the highway, and that UDOT was hopefully clearing out the culvert to make that open under 191. So that's what I can tell you from the notes I have in front of me.
Mayor?
Hold on a second. Does that help, Lou?
Yes, it's just, I wanted it if we're taking a vote on whether we work on that wash or that, I just want to make sure that we know that we did get advice, that we took it seriously and checked it out. I think it would set a precedence for all the other properties that are trying to build in washes and protecting their properties. There are quite a few in town.
And you believe it would be an unfortunate precedent, is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
It'd get quite expensive.
Mayor?
Grant.
I agree with Lou. It's not, we've never traditionally worked on anything south of the highway. That starting that now is not the right thing to do. I rode over there and it's an extensive wetland, and I like the idea of trying to keep the floodplain moist, and like Mr. Hook said. So, I've looked at it today. I rode over and looked at it. It's just not a town issue in my mind. And that's kind of where I am on that.
There's also that wash that goes right through Copper Cliffs that has caused some problems, but they were responsible. They fixed it themselves. There are washes in our 37 square miles. There are a lot of washes.
Well, and actually, I don't believe Copper Cliffs took that on. I could be wrong, but I believe the county took that on. That new culvert. But it doesn't matter. The point is, what are we going to do with this? Or do people feel like you're ready to take a vote on it, or do you need more time?
I'll make a motion to not do this, Mayor.
Okay, not do what, Brant? You need to be.
To not provide town financial assistance on private property at Cadillac Ranch, because it, in my opinion, does not benefit the town and is not a place that we could spend public funds.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Now that there's a motion and a second, I just want to clarify that last week when I discussed this, I thought we had an obligation because of the work we had done upstream on the ditch. Luann's comment, though, was very helpful, in which she described that work that was done upstream was, although it did benefit some landowners incidentally, it was primarily to save the street, to protect town property. So she kind of changed my mind there, and I could see the logic there. So that's where I'm at right now too. It would be nice if we could meet everybody's wishes, but there are other people who have had to do flood mitigation work on their property, so.
And I just want to point out that the work that was done in the canyon was inherited by us. It was not done by the town.
Right.
It was done by the service area.
But the entire purpose was, anyway.
Right.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I,
Anyone opposed? Then it's unanimous. The second part of that is cleaning the culverts in general in town. We asked Steve Helgerson to do a survey of the culverts that really need to be cleaned out that we're responsible for. I have not seen anything back from Steve in writing, but I asked him to identify the 5 most blocked that would cause problems for flooding. And I believe that he has done that. What I'm asking for is for us to give approval for Steve to work on the 5 culverts that he identified.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then I will get back with Steve and have him give us the list. And get that right away.
And-
Start. Yes.
Some of the I think the culvert up Calf Canyon is on private property. Do we need a permission slip to clean that out from Jennifer?
If we're going on something that's somebody's private property, yes, we probably should get permission, but it depends on, let's just find out what the 5 are, Brant, and see if we need to get permission from folks.
And I'm thinking we could get a blanket permission, from Jennifer that just says anytime we need to work on that culvert, do it. I'm just kind of where I'm thinking this will end up if we need it.
So you're referring to Jennifer Stoll, correct?
I am up Calf Canyon, that big blockage up there that's kind of at the base, right where the pond starts.
So
But it's on the road, the culverts are on the road, so I think basically we need to make sure that we don't go onto private property and accessing it with a bulldozer or whatever unless some sort of need is there and we do get permission.
I'd
Just
like
stay within the road right away.
I'd like to have permission because I feel like anytime we're going to be messing over there, we're going to be on part of private property. You know what I mean? I'd say just go ahead and cover that with the landowners that will allow us to, and that way we can kind of just get up there and get some work done quickly if needed. That's
to me, the starting point is let's find out from Steve Helgerson what the 5 are that he's identified as problematic, and then look at where they're located.
that's going to
Okay. Moving to the addressing system for Bluff. Sometimes I think I remember things and then I don't. So thank you to Mary Gillum for reminding me that back in March, we did talk to the state about how to implement the addressing. And so I believe that all the notes from her went out to everybody, but what I'm going to do, unless somebody else wants to jump into this, is I'll meet with Mary when I get back into town, and we'll look at that system and look at the ease or not of implementing it. But I think it's easier than I was recalling, since I'd forgotten the conversation with the state and about how they directed us to something. But Mary Gillum is willing to help me or us understand it. So if any of the 4 of you, if somebody else would like to take this on, I'm fine with letting that happen. Otherwise, I'll just go ahead and follow up with Mary. So
why don't you and Mary go ahead and do it, Mayor?
anybody?
This is Erin. I have also been doing research on this. I have a meeting with someone at the state level tomorrow. I believe it's probably the same person that you talked to in March. And then Mary has also reached out to me directly, so we can kind of coordinate on that. I've also talked to some folks at the county and up in Blanding to just kind of start doing research on this because we're kind of getting some alternate information, I think.
I would be willing to help.
I have a comment.
Grant.
I asked Linda if Polaris had a program for a street address, and she said she didn't think they did. But I feel like for most software programs, it's a two-way street, and this is something they need to develop. Cemetery District maybe too. So I'd like for Polaris to keep improving with things we need. So I'd like for us to keep that dialogue open.
Okay, so back to the question of coordinating this. I'd still like to be handling the coordination, and I'll work with Erin on this, and we can work with Mary. Then, does that make sense?
You have a question for Mary.
Yes, Mary Gillum, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that remember the software that's used for this is Esri's ArcGIS. So it's not something that you would get from the company that's providing the support for your other technical computing needs.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Mary. So, Erin, if you and Mary and I should get together and have a meeting when we can all get together and do this, does that make sense?
Yes.
This is Linda. I can also help with this.
Well, the four of us can meet and then decide what the next step is, and so that we don't get too many people working on this one thing. Then let's move to number 4. Update on the Utah Department of Transportation's Main Street visioning and the driver feedback. I received an email from Jared Beard. I just need to find my notes here. So we're stuck on the driver feedback signs again. Primarily, it's where they're going to be and where they're going to install them and how that's going to work. But it looks like another month or two before they make that down. And that was sent on July 12th. So Brant, when you said that you'd be willing to work with UDOT, it looks like we're still delayed on that.
Okay. I'd like to have them in by fall. So fall would be a good goal for us to have them in for our fall season.
Well, that may very well be where we end up, because I think with supply and demand, I saw again in the news that chips are not being produced for general public use, that they're going to other things. So we may still be stalled if we're going to do any kind of a chip-related feedback sign. The positive part is on the speed limit front, UDOT is completing a research study on how to effectively establish speed limits. And so Jared Beard isn't sure that this will really impact anything, but it could impact our request for lowering the speed limit. With that in mind, my thought was to put together a committee of interested entities or people to do kind of a community push to get everyone in Bluff who's concerned kind of on board. So I've heard back from the Fort. I've heard back from previously from Friends of Cedar Mesa. I reached out to the business owners of Bluff. I've tried to get as many stakeholders as possible, but my thought was we should do a meeting of stakeholders and then maybe have some quick community meeting get a petition and really put a push so that when they come out with the study, if it looks like we could lower the speed limit, that we've already got the community behind us, you know, visibly, like in numbers. What do you think about that?
I like that idea, Mayor.
What do the rest of you think?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
So I will reach back out to the people that I've heard from and try to get something set up for the first part of August, with the idea that maybe hold a half-an-hour informational meeting or something at the community center where people can weigh in either virtually or in person about what their thoughts are on the speed limit, ways we might be able to persuade UDOT that it's a good idea to slow the traffic down. Lou, do you want to take the active transportation plan?
Sure, and I didn't catch it really in time to relabel that. That's actually set for that next meeting in August. The CIRD team would like to do a similar thing, a committee to get community input. So that's that part. So that's just ahead of us to do the same sort of thing as instead of waiting, we need to get something going with UDOT. But what I wanted to do was the update on the US DOT, and they are working with Utah's DOT or vice versa. The federal people have this big grant, and they are putting out planning grants, and then they're also putting out implementation grants. So I'm thinking that the planning grant, it's this whole thing. The quote was that it's a grant is designed to support safety needs at the local level. So a lot of it was speed studies. They were crosswalk studies. All of that was part of this federal plan. They want fatalities down to 0. They had a mention of the higher rate that Native Americans have in pedestrian accidents. They're much higher than the Anglo population and all those kinds of things they were mentioning as part of the safety. So that was the one that they start at 200,000, go to $1 million, 80% federal grant, 20% local match. But what I think it's okay. So it's UDOT, it's the Highway Safety Office is involved, and then the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They call themselves the NHTSA, so they were a big part of it. And then there's also another program that's called Safe Streets for All, SS4A. So that's why it ties into the sidewalks, the crosswalks, all of those kinds of things, the speed limits, all of they're really focusing on, and they're focusing on it because the number of pedestrian accidents has gone sky high, people getting hit by bikes and so on, and so they are addressing it. So it's all focused on safety, which is why we all want the sidewalk along the highway and the slowed speeds, the crosswalks. So it's got an August 14th or August 15th date for final questions to the organizers to get any technical questions answered before the grant is submitted. And then the grant proposal has to be in by, I think it's September 15th. And so what I would like to know is if the council would support our CIRD team looking into the possibility of applying for that grant, with the town being the sponsor of that grant, following the CIRD training, and get, of course, we'd have to prepare the grant, get it to approval and all of those steps. But I'm wondering if there is support from the council to pursue this particular grant with the federal DOT.
When you say the CIRD team, who is that? Who's on that team?
That's Adrian Caesar, Molly Schmidt, myself, Debbie Westfalls joined us in the last few months.
Thanks.
Yeah. And we only have, there's another training tomorrow. The CIRD group, the Citizens Institute for Rural Design from the National Endowment for the Arts, that grant that the town applied for training, that one is almost up. We have a meeting tomorrow, and then I think it expires. I think we're all done in October or something like that. It went like a year and a half. But they did just send out all this information that I sent out to you all, the audio, so you can listen to that whole meeting to see what grants they're trying to get pushed out. They sent that all to our team members, so that they said that probably not very many of the CIRD teams, there were 16 across the country, they didn't figure that many of them would be interested, but it was like right up our idea for making a safe sidewalk. It's right up our alley for that. That grant applies exactly to what we've been working on.
I have a question.
Sure.
If we were to vote to support looking into the possibility of applying for the grant, how, I assume that it would be the CERD group that would sort of be in doing this with anybody else that wanted to join in. What would be the cutoff date for that, where you would make a look at it and decide that it was or wasn't possible? Look at some facts and some criteria and look into that and make a decision to go ahead or to would not work. What would be that cutoff date?
I would think, and I haven't I haven't had a chance to talk with them. They haven't been able to review it. Not only Debbie was able to join that meeting also, and Michael Havikin was also on that meeting. We all were just, there was a lot of information. So I have not presented that to them, and I'm hopeful that they would be willing to help with a grant writing thing. I know that that's kind of wishful thinking that I could get it done in a short amount of time when we're so busy with.
No, not necessarily. I've looked at this data, and really, I think if we were to move quickly by early, we'd have to move pretty quickly because, I don't think you could pull it off much after the 5th of August or the 8th of August or something. That would be really close to the last time you could ask for technical direction. But then you'd have a whole month to apply for the grant. So we could look at technical direction up until August 14th, and then make the decision. Should we do that to have the cutoff date for August 14th? Support looking at it until August 14th?
And maybe, the final grant application would have to be approved, of course, but yeah. I'm thinking maybe by the August 2nd meeting when they wanted to come on and talk about committees and moving forward, maybe that's the appropriate time. Maybe that all needs to be wrapped together and apply for the grant before the committee, so that, because it'd be great to have the plan. So what I'm thinking with the plan is that it would be, they have plan, and then they have implementation. And so it was $200,000 for a plan. So they are planning it, they're putting, in my mind, and that's part of the technical questions, but in my mind, they would be putting the easements in place. They'd be working with UDOT to make sure our easements, if we go over Emory.
The planning, if we got the planning
grant. If we got the planning grant,
yeah.
Right. It would be all done. It would be how thick the concrete is, how long it is, where it goes, how long is feasible, can we connect with the county? They really wanted people to apply it with partners. So whether that be UNHS or the mission once connected into town, all those are possibilities, but I don't want to spend a lot of time with the town's focus if it's not something that.
Right. That's why I would be willing to make a motion, actually.
Okay, wait. Okay. Procedurally, because I didn't put it on for a motion, we can't vote on it. We can vote on it on the 2nd, but I think there are questions that need to be answered probably, but if we voted on the 2nd, Lou, would that give you enough time?
Yeah, I think so, because we can look at it between now and then that still gives enough time to do alternate plans if there's a problem with whatever. By the 2nd, there's still that's plenty of time, like Jim was saying, to get it in by the 15th. It just seems like a perfect opportunity to me. I mean, there's a chunk of a match.
If I could, on the 2nd, if we could take a vote to whether or not we will support looking into this possibility and have the cutoff date at the 14th. And by the 14th, with 2 weeks from the 2nd or whatever, close to it, we should know the group should know whether it looks viable, and sometime soon after the 14th, we take a vote on going forward with the grant. So the August the 14th would be the cutoff date for a vote that we would take on the August 2nd, if that makes any sense.
Mayor,
Grant.
I do think that the planning grant is the one we apply for, not the implementation grant. And do we have 40,000 match? That's going to be a question we'll have to ask ourselves internally. For 200,000, where are we going to get our 40 from?
We're going to have to ask questions before the 14th of the technical direction from the people at SS4A, and we're going to have to find out if they will take time of volunteer time as in kind. So that's one question that has to be answered. And if they do, we've got lots of volunteers around here.
The other thing about planning this thing, I want to talk about that based on kind of my Main Street from 3 years ago. They talk about little areas where the highway are constricted, where you drive through it with some trees to give you a feel for slowing down. Those are all long-term planning ideas, like the feedback sign. So I'm totally in favor of planning this. If CRD's ending, I'm not sure that CRD's the vehicle we need to plan this with. Maybe it should be a town group. But those are just my initial ideas, and I like the way this is going. I think Bluff's ready to slow traffic down, and I think this is a good way to plan how to do it in an orderly fashion.
Well, we've got somebody next week who's going to be recording or talking about the active transportation plan, which we need. So I think we should be, I would like to see a vote taken on the 2nd to yay or nay to go ahead another 2 weeks or not. And then really look at whatever the committee is, whatever they have. Then we vote on either applying for the planning grant or not. So I like that sequence of events. That makes sense. Thank you.
Well, I like what Grant said about it. It might not be the right vehicle. It should possibly be a town group, in part because UDOT wants to work with the town. A different group they may not want to work with. So, but
the CIRD is part of the town, and that's what it would be. It would be a town-supported committee, but somebody has to do all the grant writing. We either have to hire a grant writer, or we have to get somebody who's already done some grants. Molly put together that grant that got this CIRD training program going, and that's what's connected me to all these different places and possibilities, grant opportunities and things. So it's just somebody who can whip out a grant and get, a lot of that would be cut and pasted and put on this new one, but it needs to be, the grant needs to be applied for, and then the planning of it and deciding where it goes and all of that would be part of the plan when they come to town and work with us. The federal DOT people, who I'm calling US DOT.
So I'm putting this on the agenda for August 2nd, unless we decide that we want to or need to have a meeting next week. And I'm looking at keeping my eye on the time here. Let's move to number 5, which is the update on the design review committee, any grant possibilities, the banking resolution, fire suppression, septic inspection, and renewal of the ownership of the septic. Jim and Brant, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I was there today. There were only Heather and I were the only 2 members of the committee that came. So we had a discussion of a few things over the 20 minutes we met. There wasn't much we could really do. Heather was here in her office. We talked about the UDB TOB bank account. The UDB is only meeting on a quarterly basis, and so any resolution that Chris has sent or sends to Woody would have to be sent out over the phone or anything if it were to come out before October. So well, I don't know where we're going to be there, but Heather and I made it pretty clear that we had to pass both boards had to pass a resolution in order to begin the creation of the joint account. That's the way I understand it anyway. And she was going to talk to Woody about that and see how that could go forward. And maybe you know more about that, Ann, since you've spoken to Woody. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just going to keep rolling here. The grant proposals update. I got an idea that that the Bluff area, I'm calling it the Bluff area source literature, would need a place to be stored here in town, or we should look at Bluff area source literature, which is literature that I see coming out of this town. The people, some people in this town are actually creating writing and literature and oral literature, and in this area. It would be good to have a repository for it. Not only that, but there might be some money for it from various granting agencies. The one I thought of first is ALA, American Library Association. They have a lot of grants that they make for things like that. So it wouldn't be much money, but I discussed it a little bit. I also would like to shoot for a partial funding from CIB in October. I'm going to try to put something together to bring that to them in October, which is their next where they'll receive grant applications and proposals. Heather Atteen had indicated that there's a change in staff at UDB. They do want to do some traditional gardening, using traditional seeds, etc., over at the community center. I informed her about the garden beds out at the mission. She wasn't aware of those, but she is now, and she's going to go look at those. But they do want to do some classes in traditional methodology in gardening and some other things. Those classes may be held in Heather's office. It's probably big enough. So we can look forward to that. And the last thing was she still doesn't have a cooler that works. So I'm going to call James and see what's going on. It sounds like the fan motor is out to me, but it might be a wiring deal. But the water's going, but no air.
I've got an update on that. James called me today. He's going to put our window unit in tomorrow and asked if I'd help. So we're scheduled to put that in at 2:00 tomorrow to get her some cool air in there.
If that's the window unit that she purchased, it's too big for the window, so it's not going to work. She's going to have something else. So,
thank you.
You guys can check it out, see what happens. All done.
All right. Any questions on that? Looking at number 6, update on community development block grant. Aaron just checked yesterday. We still don't have a change of status, so we do not know if everything was approved. What I will say is that Aaron and I very diligently double checked everything that went in on that second round for the application, which was due the Tuesday after Memorial Day. I think that was May 31st. 6 weeks later, we received notice that they did not have the signature page. They had everything else, which meant a lot of material, and they had 3 of the 4 pages. We showed that we had it, we signed it, we sent it, we had double checked it. I sent an email, and Aaron's followed up several times saying, was this deadly to the CDBG grant, or are we able to rely on what you said, which was pretty much there was no problem, just get the signed page to them, which we immediately did. Thank you, Aaron, for getting that done. So right now, I don't know if we have a CDBG grant that was fully completed and accepted. We fully completed it, but they've been silent on that end. If we don't have it approved and we don't have the funds, then we'll need to go back to the table on the AARP and the matching funds that will cross when we get to it. I want to thank Erin because she did a lot of work on getting this, and I was relieved to have that full second set of eyes looking at everything so that I wasn't second guessing whether I'd actually signed it or whether Erin had signed her share. It's 7:37. What do people want to do about keep going, or do you want to just shift everything else to next Tuesday and have a work session next Tuesday and finish this up?
Let's go to 8 o'clock, Mayor.
Okay, anybody else?
Is there anything that we should get done before backing it off to next week? Is there anything that's urgent here in the remainder?
The
I mean, everything's urgent, of course.
The financial report, which is number 20, that would be.
Yeah, I would be in favor of doing the financial report and then calling it a day.
Lou, what's your thinking?
I'm available next week. I can meet with y'all.
Linda, why don't you give the financial report and then let's see where we are with everything.
Okay. Grant check reconciliation for June, and I sent out the new list of bills to everyone. Are there any questions? And then we need to have it approved.
I didn't have any questions. Did anyone have any questions?
No questions. Pay is presented.
You made a motion, Brad? If you did, I'll second.
If there are no questions or discussion, then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then it's unanimous. So do we want to take everything from 7 down to 19 and do a meeting at the usual time, 6 o'clock next Tuesday?
Yeah, that looks like a full meeting to me. Let's do it. Motion to do that, by the way, and a motion to adjourn.
Okay, let's hold the motion to adjourn for 1 second.
Okay.
Can you amend your motion just to this?
Motion to take 7 through 19 and turn it into the agenda for next week. Whatever that is, 26.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Yeah.
So you're opposed, Brian?
Correct. I'm opposed. But let's try to finish up to.
Okay, so it's 4-1. The motion's carried. We'll reconvene for these items on next Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. I just wanted to add one thing. And sitting here, Erin, you're still on, correct?
Yes, she is.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to step back from item on the addressing and let Erin share that and handle that. She's doing a lot of work on it right now, and I'm not up to speed. So, Erin, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, then move forward with your other meetings on that. Thank you. So now, Jim, if you want to make your motion, it is 6:41.
So made.
7, whatever it is, 7:41.
7:41.
Second. Bye,
All in
everybody.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks a lot.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
All
Yeah,
right, have a
next
good day.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.